Hey, how's it going? As you can see, we are on exercise 5 for the Pro Tools 110 ebook. I'm using a new screen capturing software because it turns out the last one I used, Camtasia, has some syncing issues with audio and video. So I've had to do research yet again, and I found this one, Screencast-O-Matic. We'll see how this one works out. Okay, exercise 5. Clip and track techniques. So as you can see, if you don't have this on your computer, you can download it from the link in the ebook. Right here is on the first page of exercise 5. Getting started. We're going to open up the exercise 5 Danny Boy PTX session file. So that will be in your exercise 5 folder. In your Pro Tools 110 exercise media folder. So here it is, Pro Tools 110 exercises. I've already done some work on it, so I've got some additional stuff going on in there that you might not have, but there it is right there. Exercise 5 dannyboy.ptx. Double click on that, it'll open up, and it should look something like this. And it should sound like this. So what you're seeing in here, as we brought this up in class, this is a very kind of a complex thing. This chapter talks about track freeze, track commit, and track bounce. And so what they've done here is they have frozen a track at a point. They've frozen an effect in the track that we do not have on our computer. It's an interesting way to take advantage of an effect that we don't have, that the creator had, and they froze the effect into the track, thereby temporarily baking it into the track, so we, on our computers, can actually hear what they're trying to do. An interesting little loophole of using effects that someone else has on their computer that you don't have. So let's read through and see how they say. See what they say to do. Looking at this session, you'll see 5 frozen instrument tracks, plus a reverb track and master fader. You probably don't have the plugins that are on the instrument track, so if you unfreeze them, you'll lose the ability to hear the music. So remember, this little icon right here where my mouse is, that is the, when it's lit up the way it's lit up right here, that lets you know that that track is frozen. If we unfreeze it, as the textbook tells us, if we unfreeze it, we will lose the ability to hear the effect that has been frozen into the track itself. So don't click that button. Don't click it yet. If you do, then it'll be unfrozen, and whatever effect that person applied will go away. What's interesting about that is, like I said, this session was made on another computer. So they used an effect that we don't have, and they froze that effect into the track. Then it was delivered to us without that effect. Even though we don't have the effect that they used, since they froze it into the track itself, we're able to hear it. So if we unfreeze it, we'll lose it. Because as you can see how it's grayed out up here? When it's got the little snowflake icon next to it? That lets you know that this effect has been frozen into the track, but we don't have this effect on our computer. So if I click, which I'm not going to do, that little button right there, it'll unfreeze this effect. Pro Tools will see that we don't have it, and then it'll go away. It's an interesting little thing you can do with track freeze. So you'll see that there are multiple plugins on each of the instrument tracks. You do want to be able to make changes to the effects plugins. Fortunately, a frozen track can be committed, and you can commit only the inserts that you want. So remember, there's track freeze, and there's track commit. They do similar things, but commit can do a little bit more than what than freezing a track can do. And if you would like a refresher on that, if you go to the modules from this week, you will see the PowerPoint that has bullet points for what frozen tracks can do and what committing tracks can do, and that's where you can get a refresher. So in the meantime, let's just continue with this exercise. Make sure that the 5 instrument tracks are selected. So remember, when you freeze and when you commit, it will freeze and commit the tracks that are selected. So this track is selected, this track is selected, these 5 tracks are selected. This one isn't. And how do we know? Because the nameplate is not highlighted. So once again, select, shift select, shift select, shift select, shift select. They should be selected by default, but if they're not, shift select these 5 tracks that you see on the screen. That way, when we go up to track, if we hit unfreeze, those 5 tracks, because we selected them, will unfreeze. But we are going to do a commit. So since they are selected, they will commit. So let's go back here just to make sure. In the commit tracks to insert dialog box. Okay, so we want to hold down the shift and option keys, right click the second insert, which is a trim plugin, on any of the selected tracks and choose commit up into this insert. So this is a tricky thing. I'll show you what we're going to do. Because we have selected these 5 tracks, and because I hold down shift and option and right click on this trim, what that does is right clicking on any insert, in this case trim, will bring up a menu like this. But when you hold down shift and option, what you're doing is you're telling Pro Tools, hey, whatever is selected here, take that into account with whatever I choose here. So let's do that one more time. I want to commit this insert and this insert. As you can see, all of these tracks have these 5 tracks have those 2 inserts, as well as a third insert. But I just want to commit these first 2 inserts to all of these selected tracks. So select the tracks, hover over the insert that's at the bottom of the list that you want to keep. So I want to keep this one, and I want to keep this one, trim, this one, and this one for each of the selected tracks. So hold down shift and option, or alt if you're on Windows, right click, and now it'll say commit up to this insert. So now we're going to say, go into some details of how to commit these 2 insert effects to these tracks. In the commit tracks to insert dialog box, choose the settings shown here. So we want to uncheck consolidate, volume, and mute, and we want to make sure sends, insert after selected track, and offline are selected. So let's do that. So uncheck this, uncheck this. We want sends, insert, offline, and for source tracks, we want to read do nothing. And what we'll do is this will make sure that the sends copy and insert after selected track and the source tracks, which are these tracks, do nothing. So I'm going to hit OK. Let's just make sure. Okay. There you go. So look at what's happened here. It took these 5 tracks. It committed, in other words, it basically baked into the tracks. So now they're a part of the tracks, of these new tracks permanently, these first 2 inserts. So so we have 5 new tracks, and they're all the same names as these 5 tracks, but they say CM, which stands for committed after them. And as you can see, the one insert that we did not commit is still there. So these first two, we've got a copy of these 5 tracks. Here they are right here. These 2 top inserts we have committed to the tracks, so they are baked into these tracks. And we kept the insert that we didn't commit. So it's still part of the track, but we could take it out if we want because we haven't taken it because it's not baked into the track itself. So, and if we go to our audio files folder, you don't have to do this. You could just watch to see what I do here. I've done this a few times, so, but as you can see, look, FrenchHorn.cm, Trombone1.cm, Trombone2.cm, Trumpet1. So when you commit something, you saw it on the screen. It said rendering files, and I believe it said bouncing tracks. So what it's doing is creating new actual audio files, and you can see them here in your clip window as well. Pretty cool. All right. So, oh, I never do this, so this is interesting. Now you have 5 new audio tracks along with the original instrument tracks, which we don't need any longer. Let's create a trash can instead of deleting them. Create a basic folder track, name it trash can, right-click the trash can name track, and make inactive. Drag all the... Cool, okay. So, what we're doing here, and we're going to use what's called the folder track. What's cool about folder tracks is, maybe you want to keep these tracks. I don't know. It's always weird to get rid of your, the source raw material. So what we're going to do is we are going to shift select, just like we did before, the 5 tracks that we had just committed, not the new ones, the ones that came that we worked with. Then what we want to do is, actually let's see what they have us do. Create a basic folder track and name it trash can. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Track, new, basic folder track. And we're going to call it trash can. And as you can see, they placed it underneath the 5 tracks. So let's go ahead and right-click on it. Right-click on the trash can nameplate. This is a folder, just like a folder on a hard drive. Make inactive. So we'll see it, but it's italicized. And because it's a folder, whatever we put into that folder will be inactive, because the folder controls whatever is in it. So if the folder is inactive, then whatever is in the folder is inactive. See here it says solo and mute. Whatever, if I selected mute, then whatever's in the folder is muted. So we basically shift select these 5 tracks, click on any of them, drag it into the trash can folder. See what I'm doing here? Let go. Now it's in there. So, as you can see, each folder track, every time you make a folder track, it gives you a little folder icon here. When you click on it, it opens and closes the folder. That's what's so cool. So we still are keeping these, but we are putting them in the trash can folder track, and the trash can folder track is inactive. So there's stuff in there, it's just basically turned off. So now let's play what we've got. See? The effect baked in there. And if we want to keep this, this is a super cool effect. It's called Control Strip. We'll get into that later. But it's if we want to play with this effect, we still can. But the other 2 effects have been baked in. So that's cool. Okay. clip gain tweaks. So in this exercise, we'll make some small and not so small adjustments to the tracks using clip gain and elastic audio. Let's start with some clip gain tweaks. Make sure you're seeing the clip gain line, view clip gain line. Okay, so this is your clip gain. View clip gain line. Oh, that wasn't, see, this is clip gain info. If you turn it off, you don't see it. Clip gain info. There it is. View clip gain line. Ooh, that's cool. So the clip gain line, like I said in class, this controls the volume. This controls basically the signal strength of the clip itself. As you can see, this middle one right here is a little bit weaker than the one on the bottom. So I could increase the clip gain of this clip, and you can see the line going up. All I'm doing is I'm left clicking on the actual, this is like a little fader right here that's next to the decibel count. By default, it's always 0. But if you click and hold on it, a fader comes up and you can increase the gain, which is the signal strength of the actual audio file, or decrease it. Basically, if you decrease it enough, you're basically muting it. The reason we do this is because if a clip is too quiet, we're not going to be able to use our faders properly. Because yes, the fader can increase volume. However, if the volume is low to begin with, then we're just going to be keeping our fader up only just so we can hear it. That's not a good use of your faders. Your faders are meant to mix. See how these faders are set right now? This is a mix of these tracks. And if a track is too weak, it's not going to be audible enough to mix. So that's what gain is for. It increases the strength, the audio strength of the track if it needs it, so we can actually mix it with the other tracks. Just a quick review. So resize all the audio tracks to large. It's not required, but you want to see what you're doing. And make sure we're in slip mode. So we are in slip mode. All of these tracks should be set to large. So let's click on this. Shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. So these 5 tracks are now selected. Now, if you click on this little arrow right here, playlist selector. Oh, that's not it. Where did it go? Actually, this is how I do it. If you hold on Shift and Option or Shift Alt and hold your mouse sort of this borderline between the tracks and drag, it will make those tracks the size you want. Again, this is holding down, selecting the tracks, and then holding on Shift Option or Shift Alt on Windows, and then dragging the size of these tracks. It should be about that size. You can also, right here, this thing that looks like a ruler, right here, you can just right click on that and choose the size that you want. Wow, that's large, huh? All right. Let's just do that for each one. That's what they want us to do. Large, large, and this one, large. Wow, that fills up the whole window and then some. So you can make this window a little smaller. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay. Okay. The end of the second phrase of the trumpet gets a little lost in the rest of the brass. Let's give it a nudge with clip gain. This is a perfect example of what we're talking about. So at 43405, we need to make breakpoints around 43405 and 53268. Here, I will keep this open like that so we can see what it is we're doing. There we go. Okay, so let's go to 43405. There we go. There we are right there. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. R and T, remember, will zoom in at where your selector is located. No, we want 4. There we go. There we go, right there. So, what is it? The trumpet track, which is this one right here. So we're going to create a breakpoint. So let's take our pencil tool. And let's see here. There we go. Remember, we're seeing our clip gain line, so we can draw on it. And then around 53268. And what's cool is wherever I move my cursor, look here what says cursor. So I don't have to actually manually type in stuff here before I, draw a breakpoint. I could just move my mouse around. And here it says go to 53268. So I will just draw here and watch these numbers right here. So around 53268, that's 261. That's close enough. Or 275. Boop. See, there's that one. And then it says anywhere between those two breakpoints. Okay, so let's go. Oh. So obviously, wherever I click a line, so if I'm like, oh, I want it to be about this loud, I could just click right here and look what happens. Since this breakpoint was here and this breakpoint was here, it'll increase it to where I clicked it. I can click here, I can click there. You get the idea. Wherever I click, that is where the new breakpoint will be. And as you can see, when I click right here, watch what happens to the volume, which is symbolized by the waveform. It increases in size, letting you know I've made it louder by increasing the clip gain. But I'm just going to do this. There we go. And now it says grab the middle breakpoint and raise it so that the end of the phrase doesn't taper as much. We want it to look like this. So let's do that. Let's use our hand tool. Click right there. And go about like that. And what it's doing is we're making it louder, and then it's quickly going back to where it was. It is your artistic choice, as they say. Okay, then we're going to do this again. Oh, he uses a term I like using, sonic surgery. However, there was a post-production audio place in Burbank called Sonic Surgery. It's no longer around, but that's where I got the name from. So I guess I stole it too. Okay, so let's create 3 breakpoints, 19.1, 480, 19.2, 480, and anywhere between, and we're going to dip it a little bit. Okay, so let's actually go there. 19.1, 280. Okay, so as you can see, we're right there, and this is on horn, so it's actually on French horn. On the horn track. Oh, he means French horn. He means French horn. So on the French horn track, we want, I love it when I accidentally do that. 19. I have a little water right here. My mouse bumps into it and just, yeah, the mouse button goes off. Okay. So pencil tool. Click right there. And I could just use this. I'll go around to 19.2, 480. And then anywhere in between, and I'll just go ahead, oops, not that. Okay, then I'll just click on a little bit below the line, but right here. There we go. So this is what a lot of engineers do when they record, and you could do this for cinema as well. You're going to zoom into the waveforms, and anything that seems a little loud, maybe someone talks like this, and you want to like make those syllables, little syllables a little quieter. You can go in with the clip gain and your pencil tool, even and your hand tool as well, to like drag this around to make the volume that's a little more desirable to you and your audience's ears. So that's what we're doing here, but just with music. Okay, now we're going to use, so we've done that. So we played with clip gain, we played with freezing and committing. Let's now do some elastic audio. So let's use elastic audio to fix a few things and add some drama to the song. So in each track, enable elastic audio and choose monophonic. I don't like monophonic, I like polyphonic, but we're going to stick with what they're saying here. Remember in class, elastic audio is a way that you can modify you basically stretch out or compress the time of an audio clip without changing the pitch. So if somebody speaks a line a little too slow and you want to speed it up so it's more like a little too slow, you can do that with elastic audio, and it'll just make them sound like they're speaking faster or slower, depending on what you're doing, but without changing the pitch, which if you've ever sped up audio in Premiere or a video editing program, it makes things sound like this. It makes people sound like chipmunks, or makes them sound like they're slowly going to sleep. So elastic audio is a good way to speed up or slow things down, but keeping things sounding the same. It's a really basic way to describe it. But it uses algorithms, like basically coding, to do that. And there's different levels of those algorithms. One of them is called polyphonic, which is a good general algorithm for elastic audio. Monophonic is not as powerful, and sometimes it'll make your audio just sound kind of splotchy. So I don't like it, but they do. So we're going to do what it says. Okay. So, first of all, are these tracks tick-based or sample-based? Right here, this is your time-based selector. Every track has a time-based selector. As you can see, the tracks we're working with, they were instrument tracks to begin with. By default, an instrument track or a MIDI track is always tick-based. And by default, an audio track, a master track, or an aux track are sample-based. And I would go back to the MIDI chapter in I think it might be chapter 6 in your 101 book, and read the difference between tick and sample-based tracks. And the basic difference I'll tell you now is tick-based tracks are married to the tempo. So if you change the tempo, then you're changing the duration of the tick-based track, so things will go faster or slower. Sample-based tracks, you can change the tempo and nothing will happen. They will stay the time that they are. Elastic audio only works if your track is a tick-based track. So when you are turning on elastic audio, which is this little guy right here, and every track has that, you are effectively turning your track from whatever mode it is into a tick-based track. These ones are already tick-based, so we don't have to worry about changing them. But that's what they want us to do, so that's what we're doing. So, first, let's make sure we save. I forgot to ask you guys to do that. File, save as, and save it as your initials. There we go. Okay, so what are we going to do? On tuba. Okay, so our tuba track. Tuba, right here. We need to turn elastic audio on. So next to where the time-based selector, where we say it's tick-based or sample-based, there's a little thing that looks like a metronome. That's supposed to look like, at least, I think. It's a triangle with a little vertical line. Click on it. Boom. When you click on that, it's giving you the algorithms I was just talking about. We want to choose monophonic for some reason. You can see I don't like that choice, but that's what we're going to do. Monophonic. There we go. Now, where it says waveform, our track view selector, we want to click this on analysis. This was not available to us before. Now it is. Analysis and warp. These are the two track-based views, or track views, that will allow us to warp our audio using elastic audio. So let's look at analysis. Okay. all of these lines, let's see how they describe it. Select an area between 22103 and 22187. Oh, 871. Okay. So remember, all these lines are where Elastic Audio has analyzed your track and determined that these are what we call transient points in the audio. Transient points are where are points where we have the ability to stretch out or compress in time the clip. So in order to do that, we would go into warp mode, and then we'd click on one of those analysis lines. I'm not going to do that. And actually, that's when the warping would happen. But let's keep it in analysis view, and let's see what they say. 22103 to 22871. Okay, so let's go to 22103. There we go, which is right there. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can actually see what's going on. So what they want us to do is select this spot right here. Let's see. All right. So with the selector tool, and again, wherever our cursor is, that is what will show us here. So get your cursor as close as you can to 22103 with the selector tool. Make sure that's selected. And go up to 871. .870 is fine. Now they want us to hit the delete key. What we've done is we have deleted those analysis markers because we are in analysis view. So if you don't want these analysis markers, highlight them and delete them. I'm going to undo that because I didn't want you to do that. But just whatever mode you're in, if we're in volume mode and we create some volume changes, we can select them and then delete them. That's what's, if we're in waveform mode and we select part of a waveform and hit delete, that waveform will disappear. But we are in analysis mode, and these are these are what we call event markers in the analysis mode. And when you highlight them, you can delete them if you so desire. So, using the grabber tool, double click near let's see, double click near to create another event marker. Okay, so grabber tool, go to 2.1, and remember, let's see, 2.1.0.0. Remember, we're watching this area. 2.1.0.0, about right there. So in analysis view with the grabber, about right here, double click. We just created a new event marker. Why is this important? Because remember, these event markers will become warp markers, and warp markers are what we use to stretch or compress the clip. So if this event marker is here, that means from here onwards is where the stretching will happen. If the event marker was here, then here onwards is where the stretching would happen. And that would create, you'll see, like if you've got a long clip like this and you stretch it, it will stretch differently than a short clip that you stretch. So that is what you're doing here. You are basically defining the sort of the parameters of your stretching or compressing by using event markers. Okay, now go to warp view. You'll still see event markers, but grayed out. Analysis, warp. They're still there, but they're just grayed out. Hold the shift key using the grabber tool, click on the second event marker. The first, second, and third event markers have been promoted to warp markers. On the second event marker. All right. So, grabber tool. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. So I'm going to hit shift, click. And what that's done is when you shift click on an event marker, which is what I did, it will convert the one before it and the one after it to warp markers. And what's a warp marker? A warp marker is literally an event marker that is got the little triangle at the bottom. I guess that's what that elastic thing is. It's supposed to be like a warp marker. Okay, there we go. Now let's have some fun. Drag the beginning of the first tuba note so it's roughly at the same time as the first note on the trombone track. Okay. So this is the trombone track. Here is the tuba track. They're saying they want this note to begin when this note begins. So let's do that. So as you can see, this event marker won't go back anymore. I could go like this, and I could go like that. This event marker, see what's doing there? Event markers, but the one in the middle, see what I do here? See that? Whatever I do, so this event marker is between this one and this one. These act as bookends. So whatever I do with the one in the middle won't affect anything on this side and won't affect anything on this side. It'll only affect what's in here. So that's why whenever you work with warp markers, ideally, if you're trying to work on specific notes, you should have a warp marker to the left of that note, a warp marker to the right of that note, and then have a warp marker around that actual note, and then you can finagle it without affecting the rest of the clip. So we want this to get pushed back to start around this point. So I'll take this warp marker and look what's happening. All right, there we go. Now it's starting at about the same time. Let's see. Maybe a little bit. There we go. Okay. So it literally just stretched it out. That's all it did. It's not making it sound slow or fast. It's just making it a little longer. Okay. We haven't deleted the original frozen tracks, and tempo changes can't be added when there are frozen tracks in a session. So it says to save as. That's cool. Let's save as again. And let's save it as your initials and then like a number. So 01, 02, 03. This is my third version of it, so I'm going to call it 03. And now it says delete the trash can track. In the dialog box that appears, choose to delete all the member tracks. Now let's make some tempo changes. So basically what they're saying is when there are frozen tracks, you can't make tempo changes. Remember, tick tracks are married to tempo. If a tick track is frozen, then that you're basically freezing the tempo because tick tracks and tempo are married. So if there's a frozen tick track in there, then that means the tempo is basically frozen as well. So we need to either unfreeze those tracks or just get rid of them. Remember, this is the trash can. So we're going to get rid of it anyway. So let's go up to delete the trash can track. Right click on it or just go up to track. First of all, make sure it's highlighted and nothing else. Track, delete. Now it's saying some folders contain unselected member tracks. Would you like to delete these tracks or keep them? So let's see what they say, shall we? Choose to delete all the member tracks. Boom. Now they are out of the session. If we actually looked at our tracks, you'll see the only tracks there are the ones that say CM, the ones that we committed. So the other ones are not there at all, which now means nothing is frozen. There are no frozen tracks in here, which means we can adjust the tempo. So at 9-1, change the tempo to 45. So let's go to 9-1. There we go. And if you don't see the tempo ruler for some reason, go up to View, Rulers, Tempo. It's usually always selected, but just in case. And there should be a little opener right there, a little expander. I always like opening up because then you can see your numbers. So our tempo, and you can see up here, is already at 50. It's at 50 beats per minute. And if you're not seeing this for some reason, go up to here and click on, that's always the wrong one, MIDI controls. MIDI controls. That's what opens this up. So our tempo's at 50, and we have gone to bar 9, beat 1. It's right there. And at that point, we want to change the tempo to 45. So, how do you do that? Tempo. Drag your mouse over here. Here's the little plus icon. What's that say? Add tempo change. Click on that. Boom. What do we want to change it to? 45. 45. Boom. And remember, let me undo that real quick. Your conductor button right here needs to be on in order for this to work. So, once again, tempo. Make sure we're at the right point, 9-1. Add tempo change, 45. And then at 9-3, we're going to change it to 50. Note, you'll need to uncheck the snap to bar checkbox. Okay. So let's go to 9-3. Add tempo change right there. Uncheck snap to bar. Remember, this is the bar. So if we chose snap to bar, then it would basically round up. It's like rounding up. It's like round up to the next bar. We don't want to do that. We want the tempo to change mid-bar. So we uncheck snap to bar. Do that. Make it 50. And now it's back up to 50. Okay, at 13.3, change it to 43. And then at 14.1, change it to 50. And then at 18.3, change it to 40. There we go. There's some audio artifact. Okay, let's read this. First of all, remember I said, let's look at this. Monophonic. Remember I said how that can make things sound kind of splotchy? This is true. All of these algorithms, monophonic, polyphonic, rhythmic, all of them are basically like rough drafts. It allows you to listen to your Elastic Audio sort of in a rough draft form. Polyphonic's the best of them, but still they're all rough drafts. Once you get it to something that sounds like it's going to work, you want to switch it to this thing called Xform. And what Xform is a rendered, not a real time, but a rendered Elastic Audio algorithm. And that will that's basically the high quality algorithm. So any sort of splotchiness or artifacts, as they say here, that you're hearing, Xform will smooth those out. So we'll do that. Let's play it a little bit, though, just to hear what it sounds like. Let's go back to the beginning here. It sounds okay to me. But when you are changing the tempo, you are also changing Here, I'm going to use the trim tool. Look at what's happening to the tuba track when I bring this tempo down. It's elongating it because this is an elastic audio track. Now if I played it, but we don't want to do that. But to make sure there are no artifacts, click on monophonic. This window pops up. This is your elastic audio window. This lets you choose the algorithms. Here's the monophonic. We'll choose X form. And what I'll do is, you see this little twist, this little guy right here? That's letting you know that it's rendering. So it's now rendering that whole track using X form. We've changed the tempo. So over time, the tube has gone up and down in tempo. The elastic audio for this track has been modified through both us making warp markers and us changing the tempo. And we have now made this an X-form algorithm at maximum quality to make the elastic audio effect that we've added to the tuba nice and smooth and not all splotchy sounding. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so now let's bounce. Okay, this is the last step. Our client wants individual tracks of our edited song. Here's where we'll use track bounce. Select all of your tracks in the session, including the reverb and the master fader. Okay, so shift click. So I'll show you what I'm doing. Shift click your first track and scroll all the way down. We don't want the click track actually, so we can ignore that one. So go down to the master track, shift click that. So everything between where we shift clicked is has been selected. Now, make a timeline selection from the beginning of the session to 21-100. So let's go to, let's zoom out a little bit. So here we go. So remember, when you are bouncing, Pro Tools will always bounce whatever's selected in the timeline. So if I select this, even though the session ends like here, it'll keep bouncing all of the silence afterwards because that is what is selected in the timeline. We need to select an in and an out point. So what I like to do to make sure we're doing exactly what they say, make a timeline selection from the beginning to 21-100. Let's put this into grid mode, right? Have our grid be set to, let's see, what did it say? 1 bars. That way, then I'll go to 21-100 right there. That's the way I do it. Or another thing you can do is go up, yeah, there we go. Go to about 21-100 right there, 21-1 right there. Click and hold and drag to the beginning. That's what they want. I myself wouldn't do that because when you zoom, actually no, that works. Because when you zoom in, you'll see, for some reason, they want us to only go up to that point. That's cool. That's what they want. That's what we're going to do. So bounce the tracks either by track bounce or right click and track's name and choosing bounce. So as you can see, we go up to track bounce, or since these are selected, we can click on any nameplate, right click and bounce. Now let's compare it to this. Okay. We want to make sure that is going to the right thing. So name prefix, let's call this is the name. So we're going to call this tempo changes. We want this to be a wave. Never give a client an MP3 unless they specifically ask for one. We do want to keep the volume automation. We want to keep the pan automation. We didn't do any, but there might be some in there that the author did, so we'll leave it. File format, interleave, 1648. This will by default be whatever the session is set at. So normally you would never change this unless the client has asked for that. By default, it always goes into your bounce files folder. And remember, offline versus online. This session is, I'm not sure how long it is. It's about 2 minutes long. If we clicked on that, it would be an online bounce. And so we would have to listen to the whole thing in real time. So if it's a 2-minute piece, then it's going to be a 2-minute bounce, and it's going to play it as it bounces. That's cool, but and it's a good way to double check your work. But for this, in the interest of time, keep it to offline. And then I'll just go really fast. And then it says, click the bounce button. And then when we go to our bounce files subfolder, we'll see all of our track bounces. Now I have some stuff in there already. So just to make it easier for you all, I'm going to get rid of what's in there now. So then we go back to it, you'll see what we did. Bounce. So remember, track bounce, what that does is it creates a bounce of, where'd you go? There it is, Danny Boy, bounce files. It creates a bounce of whatever tracks are selected as their own individual tracks. It's not bouncing a mix of your session. It's bouncing individual tracks. So we've got this track bounced as its own track, this track bounced as its own track, this track bounced as its own track. That's the difference between bouncing tracks and bouncing a mix. If I liked how this was mixed and I just wanted one stereo file of the mix, then I would bounce mix. But sometimes people want to hear what you've done to the individual tracks with your effects and whatnot, and that is when you select the tracks like we just did and do the track bounce. That's the difference between bounce mix and bounce tracks. Bounce tracks bounces individual tracks. Bounce mix bounces your mix. So once you do that, what I would like you to do is take a snapshot of your screen. I think the best thing to do is return these track sizes back to medium, like what I'm doing here. Because I want to see your tracks. I want to see that you've committed them. I want to see tuba in warp view. And I want to see your tempo ruler open so I could see that you've made tempo changes. So if I were you, let's see. I wouldn't zoom out all the way. I would zoom in enough to where we see the tempo changes. I want to see the tempo changes. I want to see your analysis warp markers. I want to see the committed tracks, just like that. Take a picture, and you are good to go for exercise 5.